Hi, we are Danny, Jime, and Javi, and we are going to present the Joker movie analysis. What would you do if all the important moments of your life were a result of an hallucination?
So, The Joker is a drama film directed by Todd Phillips and starred by Joaquin Phoenix, which narrates the story of a mentally troubled man named Arthur Fleck, whose dream is to become a comedian. Arthur is commonly mistreated by society, which leads him to committing various crimes to finally create his alter ego, the Joker. In this video essay, we will argue that because Arthur is an unreliable storyteller, there is a possibility that some of events in the movie never happened and were part of Arthur's imagination all along. Due to the character's mental illness, the times and showed by every clock during the film, and his imaginary girlfriend, most of the scene might be imaginary. From the beginning, we can see that the narrator story is the main character. This is introduced as not as a mental as a not mentally stable person. He doesn't have the life that he wants. So there are moments where he imagines and takes us into his own world of how he would like some things to be. Plus, this is medically backed up through his obligatory therapies. Therefore, he is not reliable narrator, and we cannot be sure of all the events that happen in the movie are real. The evidence. We have some evidence about this. First of all, Arthur is usually under the medication prescribed by his therapist that is assigned by the government. That later on the movie, Arthur stops taking his medications, and that's when his mental illness starts to get worse. This is one of the triggers of most of the situations in the film that later, according to the story, leads him to the asylum. While at the asylum, in the last scene, we see Arthur laughing about all that had just happened, like the revolution that he has just created. But a doctor interrupts him and asks him why he is laughing and what is he laughing about. To what he responds, "You couldn't get it," as if it was an inner joke between him that he only knows. This is why he says that when the movement that he has supposedly created was all over the news, and he is the main character and representative of it. Why wouldn't the doctor get it? And there is where many suppositions um, emerge. And one of them is, what if all the revolutions and all the things that happen in the movie are part of his imagination? That could be a possible explanation of why it was an inner joke. Now, all of the signs of his poor mental stability makes him an unreliable character and narrator. The spectator cannot trust the narrator, and without his medication, his mind is a mess. And he could be shifting between reality and imagination, just like in the next points.
So, through the film, we see several scenarios where different events happen. In different scenes, we can see three clocks, which mark the same time and give an indication that everything that happens in the movie never really happened, and everything is part of the imagination of the protagonist. Well, in one of the first scenes where Arthur is with his psychologist, we can see the first clock in the rooms. Then, in the middle of the film, in Arthur's workplace, we can also see a clock with the same time. And in the end of the film, already in the madhouse, when they are interviewing Arthur, you can see a clock with the same time as the previous one. Well, how is it relevant? The clocks are a symbolic matter since at the end of the film in the madhouse scene, where it seems that the protagonist will be telling the whole story of the events of the film to a psychologist, giving us to understand that nothing really happened and everything was the imagination of the protagonist. Thanks to the fact that the clocks always mark the same time, we can come to understand that the lack of chronology and the events could be disordered and could happen at one time or another, and most could be the work of Arthur's imagination.
The imaginary relationship that Arthur creates with Sophie in his mind. The history introduces to Sophie in a scene where Arthur was in the elevator of his apartment and his neighbor Sophie shouted to him to stop the closing door. Arthur listens and puts the feet between the door. Sophie and her daughter enter the elevator. When they go up the elevator, starts to shake, and Sophie looks at Arthur and makes that to him the typical expression of the gun to the head that people use when they are in a difficult or frustrating situation. Later on, out of the elevator, in response, Arthur makes the same expression but more exaggerated. Then both of them enter their homes. After this scene, we can see in the movie how Arthur and Sophie begin to date. We can see them in various scenes, like in a coffee shop and one of the stand-up sessions of Arthur. All of this in a very odd way, like not following the sense of the movie, like these scenes are from a different reality. After one scene that Arthur murdered three men in the subway, he went to the apartment of Sophie and without any words given, he kisses Sophie in a very romantic way, and Sophie follows. This scene is very strange because he still has a clown makeup on, but but it's still believable because we just saw all the dating scenes of these two characters. Later in the movie, the narrative shows us that the relationship between Sophie was indeed a montage created in the sick mind of Arthur. Based on the three main reasons that we consider, the clock that throws the movie show the same position, indicating that time doesn't pass in the entire movie. The fact that Arthur, the main character of the movie, has a mental illness and his brain doesn't work correctly, we can see bits of the narrative that are not very credible. And the movie has an unstable narrative due to this condition. We can identify this with Sophie, the neighbor of Arthur, that through the movie he starts a relationship with her in a very odd way. At some point, the movie shows that this whole relationship with Sophie is indeed a creation inside Arthur's mind. This is very important to this theory because it shows that in the narrative there are some elements that are not true at all.
Finally, we can conclude that indeed the mental illness of Arthur affect on the narrative of the movie and on his decision and behavior. And the story we can see in the movie is what the character is all about. Life can be very difficult, and too, for those that have to deal with mental illness, and sometimes society can judge very hard to them. Thank you for listening.